What's going on, everybody? Maximania back here again with another video, and today we are going to be talking about the top 10 nicest wrestlers I've ever met. Let's jump right into it. All right, guys, coming in at number 10, we have the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar. And now, I know what some of you guys are thinking, how is Brock Lesnar on this list? He's not always had the reputation of being the nicest guy. And truth is, he was a great guy when I met him. I was at a University of Minnesota wrestling meet, where he was serving as the guest coach that evening. He was just there visiting, and he was there advertised to be at the matches, so I bought a ticket, I went, and after the matches, I was on my way out, and I was in the parking lot, happened to run into Brock, asked him for a photo, and he said, "Come on over here," and I took the photo, and he said, "Turn out okay?" "Yes, sir." He gave me a pat on the back and said, "Have a good night, buddy." And I was like, Brock Lesnar's the coolest dude. I'm telling you, man. He's a real one. And don't believe anything you hear about him of, he doesn't like people or, anything like that. Maybe that's true. But don't we all have times where we just want to keep to ourselves? And, I just figured, what's the hurt in asking? So, Brock Lesnar, number 10. Coolest dude ever. All right, guys, coming in at number 9 might be another surprising one, and that is the awesome one, the A-lister, The Miz. And again, just stand-up guy. And I think some of the heels in wrestling make some of the nicest guys, believe it or not. And the way I met him was he was doing an autograph signing at a nearby Cricket Wireless here in my hometown. So went there, got in line at about 8 a.m. He started at 11, so I waited 2 hours. I was the second one in line, and went in there. He signed my Intercontinental Championship that I brought with me, and had a smile on his face, just happy to be there. And you always hear about The Miz. He's the first to do PR for WWE, he's the first to do media. He's always at meet and greets. This dude is like the workhorse of WWE. He's been there day in and day out. Since 2006, rarely has gotten injured, rarely has been on a hiatus. This dude lives and breathes WWE. So for that, Mike, The Miz Mizanin, forever has my respect. All right, guys, coming in at number 8, we have Sami Zayn. And there's so much I could say about Sami Zayn. Nothing but respect, nothing but love for Sami Zayn. I've met him a total of 3 times, and every time I've met him, he's just a delight, honestly. You could tell he's happy to be there, he wants to see the fans, and he just loves what he does, and he cares a lot about his fans. The first time I met him was actually at an NXT live event down in Leesburg, Florida, back in 2014. He had just been in a triple threat match, and he was going around the ring, signing autographs, shaking people's hand, and I got a photo with him there. From then on forth, I just loved him. Second time I met him was at WrestleMania Access in 2017, Orlando, Florida. Again, just the same as he was the first time. Happy to be there. Wanted to see the fans. Just nothing but love for the fans who come out to see him. And then the third time was actually just recently at SummerSlam in Detroit, and I went to the meet and greet with him and Kevin Owens, and his personality was the same as it was the first 2 times. So nothing but great things to say, nothing but respect, nothing but love for Sami Zayn. I have 0 bad things to say about the guy. So yeah, number 8, Sami Zayn. All right, guys, coming in at number 7 is the original bro, Matt Riddle. Now, people could say what they want about Matt Riddle. I know there's been some tension with some of the talent in the locker room that has had to work with him. But from a fan's perspective, I'll say this. Matt Riddle is an awesome guy who loves his fans, genuine. And I don't care what some people might say about him. I have nothing but love and respect for him. The 2 times that I've met him, he's taken all the time to come down the aisle. I think they've both been after live events I went to. and taking photos with fans, signing autographs. Just happy to be there, genuine, and you could tell when it doesn't feel like a job to them and that they're just happy to do it. And both times, Matt Riddle has had a huge smile on his face, just happy to meet people, meet the fans that came out to support him and to watch the matches and have a good time. So that's why I say number 7, Matt Riddle, one of the nicest guys I've met. Coming in at number 6, we have Big E. Now, I'll tell you this much. The first time I met Big E, he was kind of shy, not super outgoing. That's mostly how every wrestler I've met is. They're kind of to themselves. Some aren't always as outgoing, just kind of quiet. And that's how Big E was the first time I met him. But this was also before his run with the New Day, because this was February of 2014. So part of it makes me wonder if he was just trying to kind of be in character, because at the time he was really tough, really serious, not super outgoing. Still nice enough to go around and meet fans that were there at the event. But yeah, just not super outgoing. But then the second time I met him was fast forward to 2019, and he was at a meet and greet with Kofi Kingston, and they were both just crazy as always, like kind of screaming, just happy to be there, hugging the fans, shaking hands, just awesome along there with Kofi Kingston. And I think that's what it was. I think the first time he was just trying to stay in character more than anything, because the second time he was super outgoing. So I think that's where that kind of more outlandish, outgoing type personality comes from. And that's why I put number 6, Big E. Coming in at number 5, we have another member of the New Day, and that is Kofi Kingston. Now, Kofi Kingston, kind of the same as Big E, outlandish personality, outgoing, because both times I met him, he was a member of the New Day. And I think the thing about New Day is they're always act kind of crazy, just that's the thing. Not like crazy mad, crazy positive. I mean, they're spreading the power of positivity, as they so call it in their catchphrase. And just an awesome experience, awesome guy, happy to be there. And what can I say about Kofi that's not good, you know? I mean, there's nothing but great things to say about him. He's been an active member of the roster since 2008. He's had a Hall of Fame worthy career. I mean, Kofi Kingston is the GOAT. That's the only way to put it. And great competitor inside the ring, great human being outside of the ring. So nothing but love for Kofi Kingston. All right, guys, coming in at number 4, we have the one and only Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Now, the thing about Hacksaw is every fan or person I've ever talked to that's been to any wrestling event, convention, meet and greet, has had nothing but kind things to say about Hacksaw. I don't think I've ever met somebody that has said anything bad about him. Every time I've met Hacksaw, well, I've only met him twice, but both times he was just one of the most genuine, nice human beings. And I remember both times he met me, he asked me, who's your favorite wrestler? And from what I've heard, he asks every fan he meets who their favorite wrestler is. And I remember I told him the first time it was John Cena. He's my all-time favorite. He's my childhood hero. And I remember Hacksaw, he was just like, oh, John's a great guy, stand-up guy. And he took the photo with me, signed a picture for me. Just a huge smile on his face. And he was like, thank you so much for coming out. I love my fans. And I've just never heard anybody say a single bad thing about Hacksaw. So that's why I put Hacksaw Jim Duggan at number 4. All right, guys, coming in at number 3 is John Cena. Now, Big Match John, what is there to say about him? I've met John Cena 2 times personally, but I will say this, I don't think I'd be a wrestling fan today if it weren't for John Cena. John Cena, to my generation, is what Hulk Hogan was to kids of the 80s, what Stone Cold and The Rock were to kids of the 90s. I was a kid who grew up during the Ruthless Aggression era. I had every John Cena hat. I had every John Cena t-shirt. I had every pair of John Cena wristbands. he is my childhood hero, and he is the reason I became a wrestling fan. But to put it all into perspective, I met him twice. I met him the first time at a bookstore in New York City, WrestleMania 35 weekend. And I just remember waiting 4 hours in the rain outside of this bookstore to meet him. And when he finally got there, I remember the line started moving and it was my turn. And I went into this room where he was and I could see him. And it was so surreal. It's like, they say don't meet your heroes, but I'm sure glad I did. And now I'm fanboying right now, guys, because I get chills even thinking about it. So I went into this room, and then the person in front of me was done meeting him. It was my turn. It all, like, I just remember it so vividly in slow motion. I remember walking up to him extending his hand out, and I remember he had this giant, like, baseball mitt of a hand. I just remember how thick his hand was. I remember putting my hand there, shaking his hand, and I told him, I just said, thank you. Thank you for all the years of entertainment you've given me, and you've given the generation of kids that grew up watching him. And he just said, thank you so much for being a fan. And that was the first experience. Now, the second experience is a little different. I went to a SmackDown. It was the first SmackDown, or it was like it was the third SmackDown after the pandemic had ended. So they had just gotten back on the road, and this was 2021. So the summer of Cena had just begun. And Cena was at a show in my hometown, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And after the show, I was leaving with my brother and my cousin. Or no, I was with both of my brothers, and we're leaving the show. And we're walking back to the car, and there's like this big garage door area out back of the arena. And there was all these fans huddled back there, and I wasn't gonna stick around. I think some of them were waiting for wrestlers and whatnot, see if they can meet any of them, but usually I don't have very much luck. So we were just on our way, and then all of a sudden, I hear all these people going crazy. And John Cena is walking out of the garage door to his bus. And I just remember I booked it across the street in downtown Minneapolis. I was like, I'm gonna go see if I can go say what's up to him. I had met him before, but I need to see him again because this is my guy. This is my childhood hero. So I book it across 7th Street in downtown Minneapolis. My sister-in-law says I almost got hit by a car. I don't think so. I was looking, but her and my brother insist that I almost got hit by a car. That being said, I didn't. So I go across, and he wasn't meeting anybody. He was just getting right on his bus. But I actually brought a sign to the show that night. And that sign said, "This is my 50th WWE show." And I actually held up the sign during the show earlier that night. And when he came out for his entrance during the night, I remember this, he pointed at me and he went like this, 50? And he went like this, thank you, thank you. And I thought that was the coolest experience I would have that night. But little did I know, after I booked it across the street in Minneapolis, I yelled up to John Cena, "John, I was the guy with the 50th WWE show sign." And he turned around, he said, "That was you?" I said, "That was me." He said, "Come on over here and let's take a little picture." And there it is. That's where I have this infamous video where he says, 50 shows, thank you. And I just remember how surreal that was, that he acknowledged my sign. He remembered it. And he obviously, I wouldn't expect him to remember me from 2 years earlier, the first time I met him. But he saw the sign that night and he made an effort to come and take another photo with me. That's why John Cena is the GOAT. All right, guys, coming in at number 2 is the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. Now, Cody has had a long journey coming back to the WWE. And I will tell you this much. Since he came back, he has been on top. He has been at the top of his game. And even though he didn't win at WrestleMania 39, I'm telling you, man, he's going to finish that story. He is going to be the one to dethrone Roman Reigns for the WWE Universal Championship. There's no other person that can do it. It has to be Cody Rhodes. with that being said, since he's had this huge comeback, there's been so many stories that have come out of Cody being a man of the people, and I can vouch for that. Cody Rhodes has earned nothing but my respect. When I went to Raw a couple weeks ago, after the show went off the air, he went around the ring and up the ramp and took photos and signed autographs for as many people as he could. The show ended at 10 o'clock. He was there 40 minutes past Raw ending just to meet everybody. Security was trying to get people out of the building, and he was still there signing autographs, taking photos with everybody. Cody Rhodes, you could tell he didn't do this because he had to. He did this because he wanted to. That's why I say he's a man of the people. And for that, I love Cody Rhodes. He's earned my respect. The American Nightmare is the face of the WWE right now. There's no argument to it. All right, guys, last but not least, coming in at number 1, we have the hardcore legend, Mick Foley. Jolly old Saint Mick. And boy, oh boy, do I have nothing but absolute respect for Mick Foley. Let alone what he's done for the business, everything he's put his body through, he's earned my respect through that. But the way he treats his fans has just made my opinion of him go so much higher than I thought it could already be. I've met Mick Foley, it's gotta be more than 2 times, it's gotta be 3 times by now. Yeah, I've met Mick Foley 3 times, and every single time I've met him, he's just been an absolute pleasure. The first time I met him is the most unique story. I went out to the Mall of America here in Minnesota, and he was scheduled to be doing a stand-up show where he does like a little bit of comedy, talks about his career, and the show was sold out, so I wasn't able to go. But I remember I still went out there anyway, and I was hanging out at the mall that day, and at the end of the show, Mick Foley was, the mall had already closed. I was kind of hanging out in the area. I was just still there. They were trying to get people out. And Mick, there he was. He saw me, and I remember I told the staff member, because everyone was already gone. I asked if I could maybe get a picture with him, and they said he was still there. I thought I'd shoot my shot. Didn't expect I'd meet him, but here he comes out, and I see he's a big man. He's got that flannel, that red flannel jacket on, and he goes, "Hey, I heard you wanted to take a photo with me." And I was like, "Yes, sir, if it's not too much to ask, if you have enough time." So I remember I take the photo, and he's like, "Oh, not a problem, man." And he says, "It's great to meet you. Thanks for being a fan and whatnot." And he's wrapping up all this merchandise. He's got people there with him that are getting all this merchandise boxed up. And he was going to do a show in the other town. I think he was going to St. Louis. And the person who was boxing up this merchandise was just kind of there, and he says to me, "Hey, do you mind helping me take the stuff out to the truck?" They had a rental car that Mick and his assistant were driving, and Mick is like, "Oh yeah, that'd be very helpful." And so I was like, "Sure, absolutely." So I pick up like 3 huge boxes, and I remember Mick, he was like, "You don't have to do it all on one trip." Me kind of trying to be a show off to the hardcore legend. I'm like, "No, I got it. So I'm carrying these 3 boxes. I bring them all out to his rental car. And he says, "Thanks a lot for your help, man." And he grabs one of these t-shirts out of the boxes, and he goes, "Can I make this out to somebody?" I go, "Max." And he goes, "To Max." He goes, "Nice to meet you, buddy." And he goes, "Thanks so much for your help." And I go, "Thank you so much, Mick. It was an honor." And I say, "I appreciate it." I said, "I better get going. I got a bus to catch." He goes, "Oh, you take the bus?" I go, "Yeah, I don't drive." He says, "Well, you want me to give you a ride to the bus stop?" Now, come on. How many people can say that they've been offered a ride from the hardcore legend, Mick Foley? He's an absolute gentleman. He's so real. He doesn't have a huge ego like some of these guys might have in wrestling that you think. He's one of the most humble and down-to-earth people I've ever met. And I have nothing but good things to say about him. The second time was also at Mall of America. This time, I went to the show a few years later, went to the meet and greet he was doing, and I told him, not sure if you remember me, but you gave me a ride last time you were here at the Mall of America. And he says, oh yeah, I remember you. Me and my assistant were just talking about you earlier today. And he says, hey Steve, remember that kid we gave a ride to? Yeah, this is him. So the fact that he remembered me was just one of the coolest things I could ever say I experienced. And then the third and final time, he was doing a convention in Minneapolis called Twin Cities Con, and I was actually volunteering at that event, and I wasn't working his table. I was working at autograph booth for some of the Lord of the Rings characters, but he was at the booth next to it. So after the convention, on the night I was working and everyone had left, Mick Foley was just there. He was sitting at the table on his phone. So me, I'm just kind of, each time I meet him, I'm just as big of a fanboy as always. I go over and I say, hey Mick, great to meet you again. And he was like, yeah, good to see you again, buddy. And he goes, want to get another picture? I'm like, sure, why not? So I got 3 total pictures with Mick Foley, and just an absolute hell of a guy. Nothing but great things to say about him. And there it is, guys. There's my list of top 10 nicest wrestlers I've ever met. Now, this is just my list. This is just my opinion. But yeah, and if I'm being honest, I don't think I've ever met like a mean wrestler. So I'm not going to make a video on meanest wrestlers I've met. I've never really had that case. Every wrestler I've encountered has been nothing but great. Some of them have been a little more shy, not super talkative, not super outgoing. But that's just how, you know, some people operate, you know, that's just human beings. So every wrestler I've met has been super awesome, but these 10 stood out to me the most. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. We've already hit so many views on the vlogs from SummerSlam weekend, Monday Night Raw, so I really appreciate your guys' support. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell for future videos, and be sure to stay tuned for all the wrestling content coming to Maximania. Thank you guys so much for watching.